The morning sun slid across the polished marble floors of the Westbridge Financial Center like a golden river, filling the entire lobby with a quiet glow that made the place feel almost unreal, too perfect to belong to people who lived ordinary lives. But into that world of sharp suits, glass reflections, and hurried footsteps walked a teenage girl named Elara, her small figure almost swallowed by the tall shadows of the building. She held a weathered brown envelope tightly against her chest, as though it contained the last piece of truth she could protect. Her clothes were simple, her shoes slightly worn from long walks, but her eyes carried a kind of quiet courage, uncertain yet determined. She walked past security guards who stared a moment too long, past receptionists who whispered to one another, past workers who wondered silently what a girl like her was doing in a place meant for the wealthy and powerful. But Elara didn't slow down. She kept her gaze forward, her steps soft but steady, because she wasn't here to ask for anything. She wasn't here to beg or plead or pretend. She was only here to return something that didn't belong to her, something she had found by accident, something she didn't fully understand but knew mattered. And as she reached the 10th floor where the offices of influential business figure Lucas Branford were located, her heart beat faster, every breath a battle between fear and responsibility. She stepped through the open door of his office, where the air smelled faintly of expensive cologne and polished wood, and for a moment she froze. Lucas sat behind a dark wooden desk that seemed far too large, wearing a perfect suit and a confident smirk, surrounded by screens, awards, and luxury that felt a world away from the simple neighborhood Elara came from. Without waiting to be asked, she stepped forward and held out the envelope with both hands. "I'm just returning this," she said softly. For a second, there was silence. Then Lucas laughed, a loud, sharp laugh that filled the room and rolled into the hallway. His assistant smirked. A few employees passing by peeked through the glass, whispering. Lucas leaned back in his chair with amusement, looking at Elara the way someone looks at a child telling a joke they don't understand. "And what exactly," he said, tapping the envelope with a mocking smile, "do you think you're returning to me?" Elara swallowed, her voice trembling but still steady enough to answer. She explained how she found the envelope on a bus seat 2 days ago, how she kept it safe, how she used a library computer to search for the name printed on the front. She admitted she didn't know what the papers inside meant, but she felt sure they belonged to someone important, someone who needed them back. Lucas listened with raised eyebrows, clearly amused. "So you thought this belonged to me?" He laughed again. "You must have misunderstood, kid." His assistant chuckled and shook her head, and Elara felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She wasn't used to being laughed at, and she didn't know how to defend herself against the kind of arrogance that filled the room like thick smoke. Still, she didn't step back. "I just wanted to return it," she whispered. But Lucas waved his hand dismissively, as though the entire scene was nothing more than a short break in his busy day. Elara thought maybe she should leave, maybe she should walk away and pretend none of this mattered. Maybe honesty was something the world didn't need anymore. But just then, the office door opened, and in stepped a quiet older man with silver hair, a simple cane, and tired eyes that held decades of stories. He didn't look wealthy. He didn't look powerful. He looked human. As soon as he saw the envelope in Elara's hands, his expression changed. His breath caught. His steps quickened, despite the cane. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice trembling with urgency. Elara told him everything again. The bus, the library computer, the search for the office address. And the older man listened with a seriousness that Lucas had completely lacked. When she finished, he lowered himself into a chair, his hands gripping the envelope like something sacred. "These are my original documents," he said quietly. "My research notes, my project designs, months of hard work." Lucas blinked, confused. "Yours?" The older man nodded. "Yes, mine. I lost them 2 days ago and thought they were gone forever." The room fell into a heavy silence. Lucas's smirk vanished. The assistant stiffened. Elara stood still, unsure if she should feel proud or frightened. The older man thanked her, slowly, sincerely, with a depth of gratitude that brought a nervous warmth to her chest. Then he turned to Lucas, not angrily, but with a sadness that made the wealthy businessman shift uncomfortably in his seat. "You laughed at her," he said softly, without even looking, without even listening. Lucas tried to defend himself, but the words didn't come. His usual confidence cracked like thin glass under pressure. The older man asked Elara about her family, her school, her dreams. She answered quietly about her mother working long hours, about taking care of her younger siblings, about wanting to study but never having enough resources. And Lucas, who had built an empire on numbers and profit margins, suddenly saw something he hadn't seen in years: honesty without expectation, courage without reward, kindness without agenda. The older man placed a gentle hand on Elara's shoulder and told her that people like her were rare. He asked for her contact information, promising to support her education, to help her find opportunities she never thought possible. Lucas, now visibly humbled, stepped forward and apologized, not in the careless, performative way powerful men often do, but with a sincerity that made his voice shake slightly. "I misjudged you," he said. "Thank you for doing what I should have done." When Elara finally left the office, the sun outside felt brighter, the city felt softer, and her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. She didn't know how her life might change, or if the promises made that morning would reshape her future, but she knew one thing for certain: she had done the right thing. And sometimes, the right thing doesn't just return what was lost, it reveals the truth in people, exposes the pride that blinds them, and reminds the world that goodness still exists in quiet, unexpected places. As she walked toward the bus stop with a small, hopeful smile, Lucas Branford watched from his window, realizing that a simple act of honesty from a girl who had nothing had taught him more than all the wealth he had ever earned.